These tracks from the 60s and 70s are some of the most famous songs in the world, but they all came very close to ending up totally forgotten. Though the Beatles would eventually become known as a band that performed original material, in their early live shows and recordings, the band did plenty of covers. The most successful of all the band's cover tunes is undoubtedly Twist and Shout, which they released in 1963, just as their star was rising in both sides of the Atlantic. The song, written by Phil Medley and Burt Russell, was first recorded by the little-known group The Top Notes in 1961, but it didn't get any commercial traction. Produced by Phil Spector, the original is a Latin-leaning R&B single that bears little resemblance to the airy rocker it would become in the hands of the Beatles.
Take it up, baby.
That version is pleasant, but listening to it now, there's nothing notable about it except perhaps the lead vocal's power at the song's climax. Also, with the power of hindsight, it sounds like they're on acid compared to, well, the following year. That's when the Isley Brothers released their own version, which hit the top 20. The call and response structure of the song is inevitably infectious. Now that's more like it. But nothing compares to the Beatles' blistering danceable cover. They often played it during their early residencies in Hamburg clubs, which explains the tightness of the recording, which they recorded in 2 takes. Twist and Shout was recorded at the end of a marathon 12-hour recording session for the Beatles' debut UK album Please Please Me, and Lennon's voice was at the breaking point between the demands of the vocals and a head cold. That turned out to be a happy accident. John Lennon's scratchy vocals give the Beatles version a fresh, raw quality that previous versions lacked. The best-known version of Tainted Love, recorded by British pop duo Soft Cell, was released in 1981 and became a massive international smash, topping the UK charts and rising to number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100, where it stayed for 43 weeks. The song remains a dance floor favorite, with crossover appeal among pop and new wave fans. Its seductive vocal and uber 80s synth lines both especially memorable. The original was an obscure recording by soul singer Gloria Jones, whose pumping 1964 version of the song, written by Ed Cobb, was a B-side that didn't make much impact. With catchy stabs of bass and brass that Soft Cell would later transpose to synth for their 1981 cover, Glenn Campbell, yes, that Glenn Campbell, providing warm guitar tones. It's not. Go ahead and throw in a playful vocal performance from Jones, and the original version deserved far more attention than it received. Thankfully, it eventually got it, thanks to being rediscovered by DJs in the UK Northern Soul scene who made the high-tempo number a dance floor fixture in the early 1970s. By the late 1970s, Fleetwood Mac was a rock behemoth. Rumors had catapulted the band to megastardom, but their early years in the industry during the 1960s were far patchier. Back then, the band was a pretty straightforward blues rock outfit. You can hear it clearly in the 1968 single Black Magic Woman. Written by guitarist Peter Green, the original is a simmering, expressive ode to an irresistible woman, and was reportedly inspired by Green's girlfriend at the time, the model Sandra Elsden.
Don't turn your back on me, baby.
Fleetwood Mac's version of Black Magic Woman still sounds fresh and edgy with some distinct blues sound to it, obviously, and features on several of the band's greatest hits compilations. At the time of its release, though, it peaked at number 37 in the UK and made little impact elsewhere. But the song got a second life in 1970 when a new version was recorded by Latin rock legend Santana. Infusing the blues song with strains of Gypsy Queen by Hungarian jazz guitarist Gabor Szabo, Santana transformed the song into a boisterous psychedelic jam that cracked the top 5 of the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of his signature recordings.
Got a black magic woman.
Neil Diamond's Billboard record speaks for itself. The singer-songwriter has had a total of 53 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. The majority of his chart success was in the early 1970s when he frequently made the top 10, while many of the singles he released in the 60s never made it to the top 50, such as
Red, red wine.
which lasted just 3 weeks on the charts in 1968, peaking at number 62. A sweet enough song, it's decidedly unremarkable, but nevertheless served as the basis for a successful reggae cover version the following year by Tony Tribe for Trojan Records, which charted in the UK. It was this version that came to the attention of the British reggae outfit UB40, who released a cover of the song in 1983. According to legend, UB40 had no idea that Diamond had released the original. They assumed the song had always been a reggae number. In fact, they assumed that the N Diamond listed on the record was a Jamaican songwriter named Negus Diamond. Tony Tribe's cover of Red Red Wine introduces a great deal of bounce to Diamond's original, which is less pronounced in the smoother, higher-budget UB40 classic. Their version has proven to be timeless. After topping the UK charts in 1983, it hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1988 after the band performed it at Nelson Mandela's birthday celebrations that year.
So Neil thanked you, but...
He never did, actually.
No, he didn't.
Written by Philadelphia songwriter and arranger Jerry Ragavoy in 1963, Time Is On My Side began life as a simple gospel-infused track showcasing the talents of jazz trombonist Kai Winding. With a now iconic refrain sung by a gospel trio made up of sisters Dee Dee and Dionne Warwick, along with Cissy Houston, the song is dominated by Winding's melodies, but still has the earworm quality that would later make it a hit. And they did. The song was recorded again in 1964 by New Orleans soul singer Irma Thomas, with new choruses featuring lyrics written in the studio by session singer Jimmy Norman.
Time is on my side. Yes, it is, yeah.
The new lyrics turned the otherwise quietly optimistic original into a song of defiance from a spurned lover. Though it had obvious pop potential, the song was relegated to the B-side of Thomas's single, Anyone Who Knows What Love Is Will Understand, which only made it to number 52 on the Billboard Hot 100.
It was kind of disappointing, but I mean, that's show business.
The most famous version of Time Is On My Side was recorded by the Rolling Stones later that same year.
I've had to correct people. They heard my version before they decided to do their version.
The song was slower than many of the up-tempo rockers the band would become known for, but it built on the success of Tell Me, which had charted earlier that year, to cement the Stones as first-class balladeers. Time Is On My Side was the Stones' biggest US hit to date, peaking at number 6 that December.
I want you to want me.
The 1970s were a time of great change in popular music, with the dawning of prog rock and the short, sharp blast of the punk explosion. Meanwhile, the charts reflected the popular genres of the era, from disco to heavy metal to the first vestiges of hip-hop. And among the groups attempting to find an audience among this changing landscape was Cheap Trick, a now classic rock band who took several years to find an audience.
I Want You to Want Me. How long did it take you to write that song? Because it really is the quintessential rock song.
About 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay, 3.5.
Formed in 1973 by guitarist Rick Nielsen and bassist Tom Peterson in Rockford, Illinois, Cheap Trick built a reputation as a dynamic live act amid constant touring and released several studio albums after Epic signed them in 1976. They became hugely popular in Japan, but were still relatively low profile in the US. That was until the release of their live album at Budokan, a record that highlighted their live performance chops, the enthusiasm of their sizable Japanese fan base, and the harder edge that their songs gained when performed live as opposed to their comparatively subdued studio versions. Their classic I Want You to Want Me was one of these. Having failed to charts as the lead single on their 1977 album In Color, the live single went stratospheric, entering the Billboard Hot 100 in the top 10. British rocker Rod Stewart honed his craft in the 1960s as part of outfits including the Jeff Beck Group and the Faces, before striking out as a solo act in his own right. Much of his success came as a result of the song Maggie May, which became one of rock radio's most played songs of the 70s.
You stole my heart, but I love you anyway.
But the truth is that the song could easily have been forgotten, and Stewart pretty much owes his breakthrough to the DJs who played it. Recorded in 1970 and released in 1971, Maggie May was the B-side of the single Reason to Believe. That song was a minor hit, but DJs and the public couldn't resist side B.
I mean, Maggie May obviously turned my whole life around.
Listeners bought it in droves and made the song a #1 hit on both sides of the Atlantic, months after the single's release. It also helped Stewart's debut solo album, Every Picture Tells a Story, hit the top spot in the US and UK. Maggie May remains arguably the best-known and best-loved hit of Stewart's 6-decade career. Kiss was one of the most recognizable bands of the 1970s, still is, but the band had trouble finding an audience around the time of their debut album in 1974. In fact, they released 3 albums in 13 months, with not a whole lot of song charting in that time. Their single Rock and Roll All Night was first released in 1975 and peaked at number 68 on the Billboard Hot 100.
Countries always have national anthems. This is the rock and roll national anthem.
In the fall of 1975, Kiss released their seminal live album Alive, which flew into the top 10 of the Billboard 200 and breathed fresh life into the band's discography. When Rock and Roll All Night was re-released as a 7-inch live version in early 1976, it peaked at number 12, becoming the first of 6 Kiss singles to crack the top 20. 1970 was a tough year for Paul McCartney, who was reeling from the breakup of the Beatles and the public spat with his former songwriting partner John Lennon. Towards the end of the 60s, Lennon had distanced himself from his bandmates following his marriage to Yoko Ono. He'd secretly announced his departure from the band in September 1969, but it was McCartney who made the split public. McCartney ended up on the receiving end of most of the press backlash. They thought he was the driving force behind the band's breakup.
Baby, I'm amazed the way you love me all the time.
In spite of the chaos, McCartney's debut solo album McCartney was a mixed success. It hit the top of the charts in the US and went to number 2 in the UK, but critics were generally hostile. At the time, many considered the album, which McCartney recorded almost entirely alone, to be patchy and unfinished, though modern reviewers have been more positive in their assessments.
It was depressing. And not knowing whether I was going to continue in music, that was kind of depressing.
One redeeming feature of the album is Maybe I'm Amazed, a love ballad written for McCartney's wife, Linda, praising her for the support she gave him through the hard times. At first, the song was a little-known deep cut, but the song became a huge hit after the live version from 1976 Wings Over America was released as a single, hitting number 10 in the US and number 28 in the UK in early 1977. Maybe I'm Amazed remains a staple of McCartney's live shows to this day.
You got me on my knees. I'm begging dollars, please.
Today, Layla is considered one of classic rock's greatest love songs. Written by former Cream guitarist Eric Clapton, it was an ardent expression of his frustrated love for Pattie Boyd, the wife of his close friend George Harrison. But Layla is no self-pitying ballad. It's an infectious rocker with a delicious opening riff. The song was originally the title track of the 1970 Derek and the Dominoes album Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs. In 1971, it was released as a 7-inch, but didn't crack the top 50 in the US and didn't chart at all in the UK. Still, buzz around the song was growing and it became a jukebox favorite. Re-released in 1972 in a longer, more epic iteration, climbing all the way to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. Then a weird thing happened, thanks to MTV. Remember them? Clapton played on their Unplugged Sessions show in 1992 and dropped an incredible version of Layla.
Layla.
That version hit number 1 in Canada and number 12 on the US Billboard Hot 100, more than 30 years after the original.